Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones. And coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from cornerback Pat Surtain and all three coordinators. Plus, we'll take a look at today's injury report. All that and more coming up. Broncos were on the practice field today as they're continuing to prepare to face the Green Bay Packers at home this Sunday. And we heard from offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi today about what he's seen from the Packers defense.
No weak spots. It feels like they're strong at every level, fast. Their front, they've got a number of good pass rushers. Obviously, Gary has come back strong from his injury. He's causing a lot of havoc. Clark inside is a really good inside rusher. The number 7 linebacker from Georgia, he can run big, long. Obviously, Alexander's one of the premier corners. And, Douglas can make you pay on the other side. And, safeties are strong. So it's just, you look, you're trying to find the weak spot, and it's not like they got a big one.
Cornerback Pat Surtain also talked about Packers cornerback Jair Alexander and what he likes about his game.
We met at the Pro Bowl. Obviously, he's a great player. He has a lot of tenacity with him, a lot of confidence, and you just tell how, by his play, how his confidence, translate onto the field. He's a special player for their team. He makes a lot of plays. He's a physical corner, so I look at his film a lot for sure.
Now, as his offense is set to face that Packers secondary on Sunday, Joe Lombardi talked today about how they'll look to be more efficient in the passing game.
I wish I could put my finger on just one thing, but it's protection, getting guys open, the timing of everything, working together, the routes getting open before the rush gets there. So it's a combination of, getting in the right play and then executing the right play. I think, like you said, we've had spots where we've been executing well and, just getting back to doing what we were doing when those things were working.
And looking at Green Bay's offense, defensive coordinator Vance Joseph and Pat Surtain both talked about what they've seen on tape from them.
I see a young quarterback with talent. Obviously this league is full of, young quarterbacks, who hadn't had enough time to, get to the point where they want to be. But he's a guy that's got legs. He can throw the football. He can make off-schedule plays. That's scary for you. They have a bunch of explosive plays on tape, a bunch of long DPIs that he can buy time and throw the ball 70 yards in the air. So, obviously containing this young quarterback and making it hard pre-snap on him to look through, layers of coverage and to make decisions, but most of all contain his legs, because if he gets out of the pocket, he could be a problem for us.
They're very young. I think the quarterback, he has a tremendous amount of talent. He sees things well. Obviously, they still, getting through, finding that stage of, getting everybody on the same page. But, as a whole offensive unit, I just believe they're very young and talented as a whole. And, as a defense, we got to prepare for it, understand what they're trying to do on the offensive side of the ball.
Plus, Pat and Coach Joseph talked about the defense's performance versus the Chiefs on Thursday night and how they'll look to continue that this Sunday.
I believe that it was a good start. Obviously, we didn't finish how we wanted to, but, looking at the game, we did a lot of things well. There were some mistakes that we could correct, but looking overall at the game as a defense, I believe we played as a unit. We was flying around, communicating, making plays on the ball, and that's big, going against a team like that. Just eliminating big plays, that's what we did, and we, shut down the plays that they was trying to capitalize on. And I believe we did a good job of holding them.
In my mind, we could do a lot better. We've given away too many plays the last 2 weeks, and it's just us, with communication or not doing our job, not being exact doing our job. So my standard is a little bit higher than that, and it was better Thursday, but we can play cleaner and better, in my opinion.
Now it's time to take a look at today's injury report. Tight end Greg Dulcich did not participate. Safety Justin Simmons was limited. Outside linebacker Baron Browning, center Lloyd Cushenberry, safety Kareem Jackson, and defensive tackle DJ Jones were all full participants. Now joining me on today's episode of Broncos Now is Green Bay Packers senior writer Wes Hodkiewicz to take a look at Sunday's matchup from the Packers' perspective. Wes, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely, Sydney. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How are things going over there in Green Bay?
It's been a little bit of a grind so far. I mean, obviously, when there's a transition happening, going from a 4-time MVP quarterback to a first-year starter, and a lot of the changeover there was with this roster that was to be anticipated. But, it's been a young, kind of vibrant team to deal with, and they're coming off a bye now. So you would hope that can kind of help them get back to a healthier spot as far as the injuries are concerned.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like everyone's feeling a little bit well rested after the bye? I'm jealous you guys already had a bye week.
Yeah. Well, last year we had the late one, the week 14. So
Right.
personally, I was very happy about the early one this year. I'd much rather prefer that. But yeah, it's funny because with these seasons now being 18 weeks, you really would love to have one smack dab in the middle, but it doesn't always work out that way. For
Yeah.
Green Bay's standpoint, it probably did come at a pretty okay time. The big name for them is Aaron Jones, their Pro Bowl running back. He had a hamstring injury that he developed in week 1. It had a great performance against Chicago, but tweaked it right at the end of that. He actually ends up tweaking it again the Saturday before the Monday night game against the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been limited in practice so far this week. The Packers obviously hoping to have him back out there. John Runyon, the Packers starting right guard, even said, I mean, he is probably their best player. And when you don't have your best player on the field, obviously it's going to make an impact.
Yeah, we heard this week from Broncos safety Justin Simmons just talking about how important it will be to stop the run versus the Packers, of course, if Aaron Jones is out there, but also with A.J. Dillon, too. So, Wes, what's impressed you about what A.J.'s been able to do if Aaron Jones isn't able to go on Sunday?
Yeah, AJ had a big building block game, I felt like, against Vegas. Now, Green Bay still, I think they're right around 28th, 29th in rushing. So it has been kind of a grind for them earlier on this season. But Dillon's a guy who has been there and done that. Former second-round pick in 2020. He's had huge moments for this team and really been that 1A, 1B option with Jones. They work well together in a tandem. They even have a package that they call the pony package, which is when they're both incorporated into the offense. But the fact of the matter is he was drafted in 2020 to also have those lead back type of principles. And he brought some of that, I felt like, in the offensive line that's kind of had to settle back in. It lost the all-pro left tackle, David Bakhtiari, for the season again to a knee injury. So there's been a little bit of shuffling on that side of the ball as well. But the Packers committed to the run against the Raiders, and it resulted in AJ having probably his best game of the season.
Mm-hmm. Well, sticking with the offense then, what's kind of, I guess, just been your evaluation of Packers quarterback Jordan Love's performance so far this season?
Yeah, Sydney, it's been really promising. Obviously, some rookie, type moments, some young type moments. He only had one start in his first 3 seasons in Green Bay, and that was a relief appearance. That was kind of an emergency option because of Aaron Rodgers getting COVID in 2021. Right. But he's shown a lot of promise. And as Rodgers wasn't participating in the offseason program the last 2 years, he took all those first-team reps. So he has built up that experience and that rapport with this roster. A lot of comfort, a lot of respect in that locker room, but still getting out on the field and facing other teams and doing it on a week on and week out basis. That's been probably the biggest transition for him. He started great, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had one of the highest passer ratings in the NFL through the first 2 weeks. But going into the bye, the 3 interception game against the Raiders was something that, he talked about wanting to learn from. If you look at the numbers, Sydney, he pushes the ball downfield more than any other quarterback in the NFL. That's led to some big moments, but also, some decisions there too that I'm sure the Packers have wanted to adjust and look back at. But his big thing going into this, as he said, coming out of the bye, was really getting back to his completions, getting back into a rhythm, and trying to do better on the third down conversions. The Packers have been in a lot of third and long situations as of late. Trying to get back into those more third and favorables has been one of the big emphases for Love and really this whole offense.
Yeah. Looking at the Broncos offense, I know them and Russell Wilson, they're going to look to get back on track this week after, not their best performance versus the Chiefs on Thursday night last week. But Wes, who on the Packers defense do you really think that this offense should be on the lookout for?
Well, Rashawn Gary, the Packers' former first-round pick in 2019, he tore his ACL last November in Detroit. He's been working his way back steadily, was available week 1, but the Packers kind of kept him on a snap count through the first 4 games. Then against the Raiders, he finally made his first start, ended up playing over 50% of the defensive snaps. I would imagine you're going to continue to see that number go higher and higher. He is one of those real big spark plugs for this defense. I think it's 107 defensive snaps, and he already has 4.5 sacks. Double-digit pressures, double-digit quarterback hits. Gary is really a bull, in terms of just a wrecker in the offensive front, and that's been one of the guys I think has sort of helped kind of infuse some more confidence, swagger, whatever you want to call it, into this defense. And then certainly the Packers also have Jair Alexander, their all-pro cornerback, now 2-time all-pro quarterback. So, much like, you look at a lot of those weapons on, Denver's side of the ball, there's some really good matchups, I think, there potentially for him with Cortland Sutton and obviously Jerry Jeudy that'll be fun to kind of look at. But that's really the two big hallmarks of this defense that has also had to kind of weather a few injuries here early in the season.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Jair Alexander. Russell Wilson talked about him this week and spoke really highly of the Packers secondary as a whole. So, how do you think the Packers defense is going to fare going up against Russell Wilson, who I know the Packers haven't seen him in a Broncos uniform yet, but played him a lot when he was in Seattle?
Yeah, City, that's probably the most intriguing part of this because it is an uncommon opponent. The Packers only see the Broncos every 4 years. It's been 8 years. I was at that game when the Broncos had a lot of success against the Packers in 2015. But Russell Wilson is a guy the Packers are incredibly familiar with. There was even, I remember players in the past talking about how they almost looked at Seattle as an NFC North type of rival just based on how often they seem to play them with some of those matchups with the way that the seedings and the standings and schedules get worked out. So Packers are very familiar with Wilson. A number of these veterans have seen him. They've had great moments against him. They've had some not so good moments against him, but they definitely respect what he offers. And Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, was talking about it this week. Everybody's going to mention the 1-win Broncos, but the Packers are not looking at it like that. They are looking at it as they have a dynamic quarterback that is running more than he has the last few seasons, already has 12 touchdown passes. Packers understand the challenge that awaits them with Wilson and obviously a plethora of options that he can go to in terms of generating offense.
Yeah. Outside of the talk around Russell Wilson, what do you think's kind of been the main focus and the main talk in the locker room this week ahead of Sunday's matchup?
Really ball control and not having any takeaways, trying to at least minimize them because there are ball hawks all over that Denver defense. As you mentioned with Justin Simmons, one of the most prolific, safeties in this league in terms of his ability to take away the football. And also the fact that Green Bay just wants to get back to controlling the tempo of games again. I mean, they've gotten off to some slow starts this season. Part of that was due to penalties. Some of it was due to the issues with the run game, but just sustaining drives has been the big point of emphasis for Green Bay right now, because when they get in the red zone, Packers have been very, very good in that area this year after being not as great last season. So they've made that correction, but it's getting down the field and being able to sustain those drives to set up those scoring opportunities that has been one of the things that has sort of haunted them, particularly in the first quarter, first half of these games so far. So looking at a team like Denver, again, people will talk about some of the points they've given up, some of the yards they've given up, but specifically with that defense, I watched that game against Kansas City. I mean, they kept the Broncos in that game from start to finish, and Green Bay is definitely looking at that as a big challenge for them offensively, trying to find a way to solve those weapons and what that scheme presents.
Yeah, definitely. Well, looking forward to the matchup this Sunday. Wes, are you coming out here to Denver for the game?
I will be. I'm very excited about it. I very much enjoyed my last trip in 15. I think I got to a couple of the different restaurants downtown area there, so it'll be fun to get back. Yeah,
so it's been a while for you then.
It was a memorable night. It was my only time I've ever been to Mile High. So being able to actually get back in there and anytime you can get these AFC cross conference, type matchups, it's always a cool atmosphere to be a part of. And certainly, everything that comes along with it. So it should be fun. And I'm sure a lot of these guys on the Packers side of things are kind of embracing that opportunity too, and seeing what this possibly presents as they try to catapult themselves in the second half of their season.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Wes, appreciate your insight on the Packers. Thanks for joining the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sydney.
Plus, we were back inside the locker room and heard from several players. Tackle Mike McGlinchey talked about the offense's communication versus the Chiefs last Thursday and how he hopes to see that unit improve on Sunday.
Play more consistently, come up big on third down when we need us to, and be better on in situational, football. And I think that goes, not just for me, but for everybody on our offense and our offense as a whole. But yeah, I think, you got to make improvements as this thing goes on, and you got to be better in week 17 than you were in week 1. And that's the goal. It's just it's a constant journey of trying to improve. And there's plenty of things. It's not just one.
Plus, inside linebacker Alex Singleton talked about how the defense is finding their groove.
I think before the game, telling everyone the lights are on, you got to play better. And I think, just to, carry that, like, we talked about, and just keep getting better. I think, we simplified things. Guys are going to play faster. Guys are going to be in the right spots, and I think it's just, week 5, 6, that's when, guys really get in the groove of, games, and so we're just starting to hit that.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. Meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for a game preview. I'll see you all then.